Have you ever wondered how a regional conflict, such as the one in Ukraine, can send shockwaves across the globe? The Ukraine crisis isn't just a local skirmish. It's a complex web of tensions that has far-reaching impacts on world politics. From east to west, north to south, its ripples are felt, altering alliances, reshaping economies, and redefining international relations. To truly grasp this, we need to delve into the heart of the Ukraine crisis and its geopolitical implications. What exactly is the Ukraine crisis? Let's take a journey back to the origins of this complex situation. It all began in late 2013, when Ukraine's then-president, Viktor Yanukovych, abruptly decided to abandon an association agreement with the European Union, leaning instead towards strengthening ties with Russia. This decision sparked widespread protests in Ukraine, known as the Euromaidan movement. As tensions escalated, Yanukovych was ousted from power in February 2014, leading to a pro-European interim government. In reaction to these events, Russia annexed Crimea in March, an act widely condemned by the international community as a violation of international law and Ukraine's sovereignty. But the crisis didn't stop there. Shortly after the annexation of Crimea, an armed conflict broke out in eastern Ukraine between the Ukrainian government and pro-Russian separatists, who declared independence in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. This conflict, often referred to as the War in Donbass, has resulted in the tragic loss of over 13,000 lives and displacement of nearly 2 million people. While these events form the backbone of the crisis, the situation is further complicated by a web of geopolitical interests. On one hand, Russia sees Ukraine as within its sphere of influence, and on the other, many Ukrainians aspire to integrate more closely with the West, particularly the European Union and NATO. In this volatile mix, key players emerge. Russia, Ukraine, and the separatist forces are the primary actors on the ground, but the crisis also involves the European Union, the United States, and NATO, all of which have been involved in diplomatic efforts and have imposed sanctions on Russia. Now that we have a broad understanding of the Ukraine crisis, its origins, key players, and major events, we can begin to appreciate the intricate layers of this geopolitical conundrum. A crisis that started as a domestic political dispute has evolved into a major international issue, testing the limits of international law, global governance, and the post-Cold War world order. Now that we understand the crisis, let's explore its geopolitical implications. How does a conflict in Eastern Europe become a matter of global concern? It's a question that demands a nuanced understanding of the geopolitical implications of the Ukraine crisis. Let's delve into the heart of the matter. The Ukraine crisis is more than just a regional conflict. It's a jigsaw puzzle with pieces that fit into the larger picture of global politics. At its core, the crisis has become a symbol of the power struggle between the West and Russia, with Ukraine caught in the crossfire. This tug-of-war has not only strained Russia's relations with Western countries, it's also put a spotlight on NATO's role in European security. The crisis has also raised questions about the future of international law. After all, the annexation of Crimea by Russia in 2014 was a clear violation of Ukraine's sovereignty. This has created a precedent that could potentially embolden other countries to disregard international boundaries. Furthermore, the crisis has had a profound impact on energy politics. Ukraine is a major transit country for natural gas from Russia to Europe. The conflict has raised concerns about energy security in Europe, especially during winters when the demand for natural gas is at its peak. And let's not forget the humanitarian implications. The conflict has resulted in the displacement of thousands of people, creating a refugee crisis that extends beyond Ukraine's borders. This has put additional pressure on neighboring countries and has also added to the global refugee crisis. So you see, the Ukraine crisis is not just a regional issue, it's a global one. It has influenced international relations, global politics, and security dynamics in ways that we are still grappling to understand. Clearly, the Ukraine crisis has far-reaching geopolitical implications. But how has the international community responded? The world has watched the Ukraine crisis unfold, but how have countries responded? Let's take a moment to explore the varied reactions from the global community. The responses have been as diverse as the nations themselves, revealing a complex tapestry of international relations. The West, led by the United States and the European Union, has been vociferous in its condemnation of the crisis. They've deployed a range of measures to express their disapproval, from diplomatic negotiations to economic sanctions. The severity of these sanctions has fluctuated, with some countries opting for full-scale economic embargoes, while others have chosen a more targeted approach, focusing on specific sectors or individuals. On the other end of the spectrum, we see countries such as China and Russia. Their responses have been markedly different, often emphasizing respect for Ukraine's sovereignty and non-interference in its internal affairs. This stance reflects their own geopolitical interests and their broader views on international relations. Many nations in the global south have chosen a more neutral stance, caught between their economic and diplomatic ties with both the West and the East. Their responses have been more muted, often expressing concern about the crisis while stopping short of outright condemnation or support. The international organizations have not been silent either. The United Nations, for instance, has called for peaceful resolution and respect for international law, while the International Monetary Fund has provided financial support to Ukraine, conditional on economic reforms. The responses also reveal the power dynamics at play in the international arena. Larger, more powerful nations can afford to take a stronger stance, while smaller nations often have to navigate a more delicate balance of interests and alliances. In short, the international responses to the Ukraine crisis have been as varied as the nations themselves. From strong condemnation and economic sanctions to cautious neutrality and calls for peace, each response reflects the unique position and interests of the country or organization involved. International responses to the Ukraine crisis have varied widely, reflecting the complexity of global politics. What does the future hold for Ukraine and global politics in the wake of this crisis? As we move forward, the future of Ukraine and the broader global political arena is shrouded in uncertainty. The crisis has not only reshaped Ukraine's political landscape, but has also left an indelible mark on world politics. Possible future scenarios for Ukraine range from the optimistic to the bleak. On one hand, a strong democratic Ukraine could emerge, bolstered by global support and a renewed commitment to sovereignty and national identity. This would mean a Ukraine that stands tall on the world stage, advocating for democratic values and human rights, and serving as a beacon of hope for other nations grappling with similar challenges. On the other hand, the crisis could lead to a more unstable Ukraine, plagued by ongoing conflict and political volatility. This could further polarize global politics, with nations forced to take sides in a protracted struggle, escalating tensions and potentially leading to a new Cold War-like scenario. In the global sphere, the crisis has already sparked a renewed focus on international law and the principles of state sovereignty. Nations worldwide are re-evaluating their alliances, policies, and strategies, with potential shifts in power dynamics. The crisis might also prompt a rethinking of the current international order, leading to a stronger emphasis on multilateralism and cooperative diplomacy. Another crucial area is the energy sector. With Ukraine being a significant transit country for European gas supplies, any future developments could significantly impact the global energy market. This might push countries to diversify their energy sources, leading to a potential rise in renewable energy investments. In the realm of cybersecurity, the crisis has underscored the importance of robust digital defenses. Future developments might see nations boosting their cybersecurity capabilities, thereby shaping a new frontier in global politics. It's important to remember that these are merely possibilities. The future is inherently unpredictable, and the path Ukraine and the world will take depends on numerous variables and decisions yet to be made. The Ukraine crisis has reshaped the geopolitical landscape, and its effects will be felt for years to come. So, what have we learned about the Ukraine crisis and its geopolitical implications? Well, we've traversed an intricate web of political, economic, and social factors that have come into play in the Ukraine crisis. We've seen how this crisis is not just about Ukraine, but it serves as a stark reminder of the global dynamics at work. The geopolitical implications of the crisis are far-reaching. It has shed light on power dynamics, alliances, and tensions that exist on the world stage. From the east to the west, the crisis has prompted countries to reassess their foreign policies, their alliances, and their strategic interests. We've also examined the various international responses to the crisis. The world has watched as nations have grappled with how to respond, balancing their own interests with the desire to uphold international law and human rights. Some countries have chosen to impose sanctions, others have offered diplomatic support, and still others have remained largely silent. Looking ahead, the future of Ukraine and global politics remains uncertain. Yet one thing is clear: the Ukraine crisis has become a defining moment in the 21st century, serving as a litmus test for international relations, global power dynamics, and the very principles upon which our world order is based. We've only scratched the surface of this complex issue, but we hope that this exploration has provided you with a deeper understanding of the Ukraine crisis and its global significance. As we've seen, understanding the Ukraine crisis requires a grasp of complex geopolitical dynamics. The world watches and waits to see how this crisis will continue to shape global politics,